Happy Devils. Oh, whoa, no. It's Happy Devils Tuesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 212. Title Round 2, Carolina Hurricanes. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in North and South Jersey. As the Devils season continues into round 2 as they advance after beating the New York Rangers last night 4-0, taking the series 4-3. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Listen, Sam, it was going to end eventually. The Devils working with us on the schedule. See, I blame the Hurricanes for this because they named the schedule before the Devils were even in the second round. They named that Game 1 would be on Wednesday, so now we have been pushed to Tuesday. So it's some BS. I'm calling it right now, but yesterday was honestly one of, you think about some of the games that you watch as a Devils fan, and I'm trying to think of recent history just to kind of give myself objectivity, because it's hard to compare like a lot of the Devils huge wins were when I was a kid. You just kind of treat it differently. 2012 I was an adult, but again, do I think that this was bigger than Game 6? Of course not, but I'm trying to think of how I feel. You know what I mean? 2012, we still had that kind of bravado. We expected to kind of get places. Everybody picked against us for this. Every single analyst was saying, ESPN, who employs Greg Wyshynski, noted Devils fans, I think there were 6 analysts they asked, every single one picked the Rangers, half of them by blowout. Everywhere you looked, it was Rangers, it was Rangers, it was Rangers. And not only did the Devils win, but they blew the doors off of them. Just complete domination. If the Rangers didn't get 3 power plays in the first period, they could have scored 3 in the first period. They were just flying, and the Rangers had nothing to stop them. It was funny because we all kind of laughed when the Rangers got Patrick Kane, right? We're you got to know who you're going to face. You think about the Devils getting Timo Meier and him adding exactly what the Devils needed to beat the Rangers. And he showed it. He showed it in the series. We kept talking about, and you've talked about it many times in this program, that they needed size, they needed grit, they needed beefalytics, that whatever term you want to use, they needed a little extra. And I kept arguing with you that you can't do that just to add that. And Timo Meier is the perfect player for that because he adds that little extra, but he scores 40 goals. And in the series, he scored 0. Not a zilch. But you can't sit here and tell me that he wasn't one of the most impactful forwards on this team. So you kind of look at the difference. The Rangers got Tarasenko, who I think was much better than Kane. But then Kane made it clear that he only wanted to go to New York. And we all looked at it, he's like, Kane is terrible defensively now. And that Rangers team cannot afford that. Even with Shesterkin back there, they can't afford to get worse defensively. And they still got Kane. And they were worse defensively. Kane is not the speedster he was. He's not the offensive dynamo that he was. That allows him to make up for the defense because he can't keep the puck in his zone 90% of the time like he could in his prime or whatever the number was. You look at it, a lot of people are comparing Jack Hughes now to what Patrick Kane was back then, and you see what that kind of skill can do, but that doesn't always age well. And Kane shows that, Kane's 35 now?
He's old. Yeah, he's about 35.
So, you can't expect him to be the catcher Kane of old, and even though they got him for basically free, it's a net negative. And you see the difference between the moves that the Devils and the Rangers made during the season and the impact that Curtis Lazar had, which I still don't understand why they took him out of the lineup against him, but I'm not going to question it after they just dominated. And you see the impact that Timo Meier had. not scoring any goals, but just straight murking everybody in the ice. He took that, that Trouba hit like a champ. I will die on the hill that if you leave your feet, it's a dirty hit. Legal, not legal, I don't care what you want to call it. If you leave your feet, it's a dirty hit in my book. I know his head was down. His head shouldn't have been down. But if you, it was a charge, clear charge. That part was illegal. You can't go more than like 3 feet to set up for a hit. And Trouba had his shoulder down with the puck away from Meyer for like 3 strides. He just kind of skated right into it and then left his feet. Dirty hit. Whatever. I'm not even going to get into it. It is what it is. It was at a time when the game was basically over. He was trying to ramp up his team, but Trouba does what Trouba does. I look at like the impacts of the fact that you could beat that Rangers team 4-0 with no goals from Nico Hischier, no goals from Jack Hughes, no goals from Dougie Hamilton, no goals from Timo Meier. You got goals from Michael McLeod, Tomas Tatar, and the third one's escaping me. Who scored the third goal? Was it Haula? It was Haula, right?
Of course it was.
Yeah, it was Eric Haula. When you get goals from those 3 players, then Jesper Bratt added a empty netter. One of the goals was started by John Marino, who made a rush. Another goal was started because Andre Palat just made Chris Kreider and Adam Fox look like beer league guys. I got to say, Adam Fox was the best player, not named Igor Shesterkin, like the first 4 games. But probably the first 3. After game 3, Adam Fox disappeared. He didn't know how to play the game. The game was too fast for him. And I don't think it's because he's not fast enough. I think he was just trying to be the best guy on the ice at all times, not play his game. And you got to hand it to the Devils for just completely knocking them off their horses, making them try to play a different style of hockey. And that's what the Rangers did to the Devils in game 1 and 2. And the Devils were like, actually, let's beat them how we know how to beat them.
Yeah, well, like you said about beefalytics, this is what Mark did yesterday. He goes, Sam, this is Mark at American Whiskey, beefalytics. The fans are just chanting beefalytics at the bar right now at American Whiskey. Because they see what I'm talking about now. They're visualizing it. How nice it is that the Devils don't get pushed around anymore. That they're their aggressors at times. Or they're the ones that are defending themselves. But enough of beefalytics for a moment. They're getting secondary scoring. Haula has been the difference. I know a lot of folks mid-season were just like, huh? Haula, Zaka going over to Boston. Look how well he's doing. Well, look at the playoffs right now. Zaka's
who's in the second round?
Yeah,
it's not the former 6th overall pick.
Yeah, or even the Tampa Bay Lightning for that matter.
That one's wild.
Because Palat's no longer there. Is that a coincidence? Palat's doing
the
very well.
The Penguins aren't in. John Marino goes to a team. He's in the second round, and John Marino. This is wild, Sam. John Marino's never been in the second round.
Yeah, well, the knock on him was he was not a playoff performer back out in Pittsburgh. And you know what?
That's
gone. It's gone now. Everything changed last night because, it's the Rangers had to win now. They were supposed to win now. The Devils, we were going to wait till 2025 to see some fruits of the labor of all the suffering. And what happened was the Rangers really were the ones that set themselves back, in my opinion, when that Tom Wilson incident happened. And then you got the childish press release. And then the Chris Drury firing John Davis. I thought they were on the right track of building within the farm system and building it the right way. And then instead they cut corners. They went now. They get Gerard Gallant, who really has a shelf life of 3 years or less wherever he goes. And all it was is instant gratification that just went awry. everything was riding on this season, really, or next. And what the young Devils do, they said, nope, see ya. And, oh, by the way, our fans, you can mock their goal song outside of American whiskey, like what happened yesterday, which was, I thought, pretty hilarious. I felt like it was
All I know is that I saw a lot of quit in New York when they walked up those stairs in the middle of the third period.
Oh, yeah.
Eric Hollow put a lot of quit in New York.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I'll tell you, Nick, I really think that, the Devils last night, their fans, from start to finish, was just a great night. You had this quiet, little nervous optimism going into the game, and at American whiskey, we were on the platform, on the big stage at American whiskey, and we had Bryce Salvador on, but also afterwards we were blasting music, just having a great time. Go in 4-0 victory, and the celebration outside lasted to, I didn't get out American whiskey till like 1:30. I think 1:30 a.m. I didn't get home till like 3 a.m. I think, or 3:15 a.m. last night.
You must have loved that "Let's go tonight" text from me then.
Oh no! You know what? No, You know what? You know what's driving me right now is this team. I did the morning woo this morning. It's been a pleasure doing a morning podcast, which I never thought, but the fans wanted it. Went off to work today, and then now I'm here talking to you, Nick. But hey, enough about me. Our special guest is in the green room right now.
Woohoo! Let's go.
Yes. His name is Josh Reinitz. He's from the Jersey Sporting News. You can find it at Twitter, J. Reinitz, esque, as an Esquire. Josh, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you tonight?
Good, guys. Great to be here. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing well. I appreciate you coming on. We wanted you on Wednesday, but obviously that doesn't work for anybody now because they changed the schedule on us. But I appreciate you being flexible with us and coming on tonight.
No, my pleasure. Always great to be with you. I've been enjoying Sam's morning woos. It's like angst-filled 20 minutes of Sam hoping his day goes well. So it's makes me feel better.
Honestly, Sam, what do you got to say to that?
Well, I appreciate that, Josh. I didn't know that you were watching or I basically roll out of bed, and it's really kind of raw thoughts that you roll out of bed, your mind is clear, and you just speak your mind. And really, people ask me, how do you do it? It's like, I don't know. I just tell it how it is and how I feel at that moment, right or wrong, and I'll just run with it. And it's become, it's not easy though, because I'd rather be an extra hour in bed or take a shower.
Listen, Sam, I've been telling myself I'm going to get up early to go to the gym, and 25 pounds later, added, it hasn't happened. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, but honestly, the fans have been great, and I do it for them because if that's what they want in the morning, I'll give it to them.
Well, there you go.
Oh, it's been good.
Thank you.
But Josh, we're all a little tired after last night's game. New Jersey Devils taking down the New York Rangers 4-0 in Game 7 of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. First, I want to get into your emotions. Just kind of, I know media members aren't supposed to get emotional, but following this team, you kind of feel a certain kind of way about them after 82 games, after whatever is 200 days of basically being, living and dying based on what they're doing. How did you feel, first of all, going into last night's game? How did you feel?
Well, honestly, I wasn't ready for it to end, and I was hoping it wasn't going to end. It's been a great experience. The players have been great to deal with in the room. The other media members, getting to know everybody. It's been fun, and I really didn't want it to end last night. I was cautiously optimistic because I just think they've been the better team all year. I guess at the end of last night they'd won 7 out of 11, I think, right, against the Rangers. And at the end of the day, I think they're just the better team. And as long as they took care of their end and stayed out of the box as much as they could, then I thought they're the better team at 5-on-5, and I think they proved it.
All right, so I'm assuming, knowing that, you felt confident. You felt confident going in.
I don't know if I would say cautiously optimistic. How's that?
Okay, that's fair. So now we get to the end of the game. It's just a dominant performance. Like, honestly, like one of the most dominant performances we've seen from any team in the playoffs this season. What were your emotions? What were your emotions knowing that it's not ending, that this team is going to the second round?
I spent a lot of time going into the game thinking about Severson and Wood and those guys who may not be back next year, and all the time that those two guys put in, and the amount of just tough, lean years they had to go through, and I was honestly happy for them that they had the opportunity to at least experience a Game 7 win in their building, both getting to play, both contributing. So I was happy for Miles. I was happy for Damon. And for the other guys who were on that 2018 team that got routed pretty quickly by Tampa. I think it was nice. There was a little extra emotion between Nico and Jesper after that last goal, and I think it was letting go a lot of what happened in 2018. So I was happy for those guys.
What changed? I got it. Like,
I was gonna say throw McLeod in the mix too. McLeod, going for first round pick, who everyone's expecting to be, a top line or a top 6 guy, so reinventing himself. I think has been tremendous, and I know Mike works as hard as anybody on that team, and I think he's real indicative of the culture on that team. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. We saw a completely different team in games 1 and 2. It just seemed like this was a bad team. The Game 3 happened. It was as tight as a contest as you can have, and then it was a different teams 4, 5, 6, and 7. Even in Game 6, they didn't play well, but they played their game at least. What changed? What you've been watching this team throughout the series. You've been watching practice. What changed in this team?
I think you got to separate 1 and 2. Game 1, nothing they did worked. They clearly were out of sorts for whatever reason. They all said they were jittery, which is refreshing, I guess, for get professional athletes to admit that they were nervous and they were jittery. They weren't connecting on passes. They weren't breaking up anything in the neutral zone. And, the Tarasenko goal was probably a soft goal to open up the scoring. And I think they started questioning themselves, and it kind of just cascaded on itself. And then the second game, it's 2-1 with, I guess, about 4 or 5 minutes left in the second period. They don't give up that third goal. I think it was the Lindgren goal. They don't give up that third goal. You go into the third period on 2-1, maybe it's a different game. And then all the shenanigans happened at the end where they're just handing out 10-minute misconducts to anybody who looked at anybody funny on the ice, So, but I think a lot of credit is owed to Lindy and Lindy's attitude. I think, especially if you juxtapose it with Gallant. Gallant couldn't figure out the pulse of his team. One day he was upset that their work rate was too low. The next day he thought they played well. And the games were pretty similar, where Lindy was very upbeat from the beginning, and he gets the most out of a young team because I think of his positivity. And him coming out after Game 2 and saying, look, we lost the first 2 games of the year. We know how to get out of the hole. We're going to get out of the hole. And then Game 3, they had to prove it to themselves, and they did. I think you could see over the evolution of the series how much their speed through the neutral zone was really the factor. And as the games wore on, and you got to 3 and 4 and up to 7, the Rangers didn't get sustained pressure 5-on-5 at all. It was one and done. They may get a shot. They may get a shot off the rush, but they weren't getting the cycle plays from the kid line that was really the hallmark of their success for so long. And it was really odd to see a team with so much talent that really derived all their confidence from the power play. And if they didn't score, didn't play well in the power play, they couldn't play at 5-on-5. It was odd. I would assume usually it's the other way around, but for the Devils, it's always the other way around, right? I mean, but for them, it was real simple. Devils were 4-0 when they didn't give up a power play goal, and 0-3 when they did.
So I kind of want to go a little off the board a little bit because you brought up Lindy Ruff, and I kind of want to talk about Lindy Ruff just because it was almost jarring how loose he was. This is a man who never won a Game 7 prior to this. He is 0-4 prior to this. A guy who'd been in the league since the 90s as a head coach, been in Stanley Cups, and he only has so many shots of this. And of all the guys you named, Damon Severson, Miles Wood, McLeod, Heischer, like all these guys, I don't think anybody has as much on the line as Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff may be a Hall of Fame coach if he wins the Stanley Cup this year and he retires. Like, that's just the kind of stuff that gets you in the Hall of Fame. Were you surprised by his demeanor at all?
I think as the years gone on, Lindy has shown more of his personality. At times, joking around a little bit more, being looser. I think back to what Jack said last year in the exit interviews when Jack basically said, he loved playing for Lindy and put his neck out on the line for Lindy when a lot of people thought Lindy was going to go. There's a really good article in The Athletic by two Buffalo writers about a week or two ago that was like an oral history of the career of Lindy Ruff, and it's got all these guys from as far back as the 80s, including Mike Ramsey that played on the Lake Placid team, talking about how Lindy was this huge prankster when he was a player and how he would go in and take keys from the players and switch their keys in their lockers and then sit outside in his car and watch him try to figure out whose key was who, because it was keyless entry, so you had a key and your key only fit in your car. So I remember watching Lindy as a kid, and what's always struck me is you got a guy who he was big and he was fast, but his game was his toughness. He was a leader and he was tough, and to evolve to a point where his game now is speed and chances. I think it's really a remarkable thing, the evolution of his coaching style, and I think he just understands what it means to be a player and what they need. I mean, what other coach have you seen that and they showed it in the locker room? He told them to go out and have fun. I think he understands that team very well, and I think he's earned the right to stay as long as he wants, at least at this point.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. It was a weird hire when it happened. It was weird when they kept him on last. It was less weird, but it still felt like a change might happen last offseason, and then it didn't. They were pretty adamant that Lindy Ruff was coming back. You kind of made it clear when Lindy Ruff performed the exit interviews that he was coming back, but still, we've seen, Daryl Sutter got fired very late in the process. This has happened before. But at multiple times, like this is a guy who had a fan base chant "Fire Lindy" and then chanted "Sorry Lindy." Like this is it just seems like he's done so much to make this fan base lose faith in him, and then immediately finds a way to turn it around. And he did it again this series. And you kind of talked about the difference between him and Gallant. Would you say is the main reason why the Devils won because Lindy Ruff outcoached Gallant? Would you put that at the top or near the top?
I'd put it in the top three. I think he understood what his team needed to do to win, and he put them in positions to win, and he pushed the right buttons. I mean, everyone was upset, right? Twitter almost exploded last night when he put in Sharangovich and Wood. Neither one of them hurt him. Sharon Govich played really well on the penalty kill. Almost scored a couple times. Yeah, I mean, so you figure you take out Lazar, you want to have another penalty killer, you put in Sharon Govich. You wanted speed with Wood. Plus, Game 7 in that building against the Rangers means a little more to Miles Wood than probably most of the guys on the team. And you roll the dice. And he would have been the first one to say after the game, if it didn't work, it was my decision. It didn't work. I think Lindy's honesty and genuineness comes across to the players and to people who work with them on a day-to-day basis, where I think Gallant really didn't make any real adjustments. I don't think Drury did him any favors giving him the roster he gave him. I mean, they had no depth. I mean, if you think about it, the Rangers were very fortunate to not have an injury. If any of their guys go down in that series, who's coming in? There's nobody. The Devils had depth, and it makes it look, in some sense, it makes it more complicated because Lindy's got to figure out which piece to put in. Gallant could write his lineup game 1 and say, here's my lineup for the next 7 games without changing.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the crazy part about that. And like you brought up a good point, because now I think of that Krasov trade that they made with, I believe it was Vancouver. And that really hurt them. Like, at the end of the day, like, Kravtsov was a frustrating player for the Rangers, but he gave them important depth that, I think the kid line was fine this series. They just, I thought Kaka was fine, and I thought Shido was fine. Lafreniere was terrible. But the other two guys on the line were good enough. But, Barclay Goodrow didn't have a good series, and they just made a lot of moves. They traded away Reeves, and that was always like a playoff like move. You're right. Drury just made a lot of moves that like had you scratching your head. And it was all to bring in Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko, who arguably is just not what they needed, right?
I think Tarasenko was good. I think Kane was overkill. And the problem with Kane was he hamstrung them to get depth. I mean, you look at what Fitzgerald did by bringing in Lazar, right? He goes and gets Timo, makes sure that they retain salary, even though they can't retain salary past this year. So he's got room to add Lazar. I had a conversation with Mike Morial the other day, NHL.com, about, think about all the guys out there that are fourth-line players making $1 million, and for them to go out and find Lazar as the guy they wanted, and for him to play as well as he did, in the series, even if he's only playing 7-8 minutes a game. I mean, it speaks very highly of the job Fitzgerald and his crew have done in building this team, because this is a team that's built for now and, in the future. They're going to lose some guys in the offseason, but they're replaceable.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you talk about, like, other teams, if they lose a Severson, it's devastating. Other teams, if they lose, a Graves, a Miles Wood, Tatar, a Halla, the Devils could lose every single one of those dudes and would still be a top 3 favorite in the Metropolitan Division next season. That's preposterous. I don't think they're going to lose all of them. I think they're going to find a way to retain at least Halla, but it's wild to look at what they've done this season. Now, I do want to look ahead. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time talking about the series. We were just so pumped to finally beat the Rangers. It was just so huge. But I do want to look ahead. I'm going to start with just
Nick, can I throw I'm sorry. Can I just throw one more thing about the series? Last thing. I was, in terms of things to be happy about, I was really happy to see Tatar get that goal.
Yep.
For a guy who the last 2 teams he was on was basically left for dead as soon as they got to the playoffs, and I know it hurt him. I spoke to him about it about a week and a half ago, and he was very honest, much more forthcoming than I thought he would be. And he said, look, I don't know why they didn't play me. It was really tough on me. I tried to be the best teammate I could, and then he comes in last year. The team's awful. He has a bad year. He's got to be thinking like it's over. And then this year he ends up being arguably one of the best 2-way players in the league, has a huge plus minus, and basically, then scores the goal that kind of puts it out of reach. And so I think he's somebody who often gets overlooked. And I think they probably will re-sign him, especially at his age. I think they can get him reasonably. But if you watch their pregame soccer matches, I know that the public doesn't really get to see him, but he's the leader of that group. He's out there, he's talking trash, having fun. Like a lot of the younger guys, especially the European guys, really relate to Tatar, and I think his role on this team is a little bit undersold.
And just to your point, and it's hard to look at like preseason and like the storylines that were there, but it was a legit conversation that one of Tatar or Johnson was going to the minors. Tatar was on that chopping block until he had a phenomenal training camp and preseason. So after how he played, he wasn't going to. But going into training camp, that was a conversation, is that you have too many bodies. And you have these two high-priced players who didn't contribute last year like you should have. And for him to put together the season, I think he was top 5 in plus-minus in the entire league. I know plus-minus is like a dead stat, but I mean, I always say that plus-minus is a stat for the extremes. If you have an incredibly high one, you clearly did something right. If you have an incredibly low one, you clearly did something wrong. Now, when you look at Tatar and his overall impact on the series, I was a little worried because you look at his playoff performances in the past, he's having kind of a rough series again. But the last 3 games, he really came to play. And you're right, when he got that goal, it was so great to see, because then, he's another guy. You talk about Timo Meyer and Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier, and you think the floodgates are going to open once they score. That Thomas Tatar goal, he might get 3 in the Carolina series now.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, speaking of that Carolina series, I just want to know what's your big focus? Sorry, that threw me off a little bit. We're good though.
No, sorry, threw me off.
It's all good.
I think. Look, I think you got to go down there hoping to get a split. I think of the first 2 games, but knowing that even if you go down 0-2, you can come back. You want to make sure that you get your goaltending straightened out. I wouldn't be surprised to see them play some guys that haven't played in the first couple games because of the fatigue. And I think the blueprints, the last game they had against Carolina back in mid-March, where they shut them out. Jack and Jesper took over the game. I think all 3 of the goals were scored off of takeaways off the rush. Carolina is going to pound the puck in deep and try to forecheck and try to generate everything off the forecheck. They got to find a way to retrieve the pucks, and their breakouts are going to be the key probably to the series.
I'm just going to come out and say it. Is this a Stanley Cup contender? Do you think this is a Stanley Cup championship roster?
I think the winner of the Carolina Devils series will have home ice advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs. And if you're the team with home ice advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs, I think you're in the conversation.
And that's a good point. And that's probably something we haven't thought about. With Boston out, it's anybody's ball game, because I think it was Carolina 2 and Devils 3, right? Am I not mistaken there?
Yep. Yeah.
So
there was yesterday the last team to win a Stanley Cup that's left was Carolina in 2006. So 15 years or 16 years, yeah. So it's gonna be new for somebody this year, and why not the Devils?
Yeah, you just think of that. I'm trying to think of who did Colorado face in the Western Conference Finals last year? Why is that escaping me? Because I know the Eastern Conference Finals was okay. So so they're still in it. Edmonton's the only team that's still in it from either final, because it was Tampa against New York, and it was Colorado against Edmonton, and then you have 3. I mean, I know the Devils were technically the betting favorites, but everybody was picking New York in the series, so I'm calling it an upset. You got a bunch of upsets in the first round, and now the Devils have this path. But Josh, I do want to thank you for coming on. Like I said, I want to thank you for being flexible, but I want to give you a minute. You're writing for Jersey Sport and News. You've been killing it all season, covering the team and going to practice and putting in the work. So I want to give you a couple minutes, just kind of promote what you're doing. Let everybody know if you got a really good piece that's coming out or that's out right now. Let them know where they can find your work.
Yeah, it's the best. I guess the best way to do it is just follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle's up there, Reinitz ESQ. I've been writing game stories every game, trying to do features on days off. I have a feature on McLeod I put out about a week and a half ago. I think is worth everybody's time. There's some good quotes from Jack about McLeod. He calls him a junkyard dog, which was interesting. Just follow and I think you got a great stable of writers in your group. I think just the amount of people that are now covering the Devils is a real a rich like tapestry of different types of writing, different writing styles, and different information. It's been fun being part of the larger community, and I thank you guys for all that you do. And hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah, I appreciate those kind words, Josh. And, we'll definitely have you on again soon. Hopefully we do a big Stanley Cup extravaganza. We can have all of the credentialed writers coming on and just celebrating at the same time. But, Josh, for now, we really appreciate you spending some time with us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a great night.
You too. Come out to American Whiskey. Just remember that, Josh.
Yeah, I drove by last night as I got out of the arena. I did see your stage was still set up. I was amazed how many people were still there at like 1:30 in the morning. But
oh yeah, there was a guy that climbed up a light pole, and we had to pull him down. And he put his Devil's hat, I think, on top of the light pole. It's still there, as far as I know.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check it. I'll check it out next time I drive by.
Yeah.
Have a great night,
let me
fellas.
know if it's still there.
Okay.
Have a nice night, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Be good.
That's Josh Reinitz, Jersey Sporting News. You can find him on Twitter at JReinitz, ESQ, as an Esquire.
It was a great interview. Yeah, I really appreciate getting the insight on Lindy Ruff. You love having the guys in the room. They just get a different idea. Luckily for Pucks and Pitchforks, we have Dan Rice writing for us. He's in the room every single night, getting the quotes, kind of getting an idea of the temperament is really hard to kind of tell. And I mean, you got Amanda Stein, who, she works for the team, so you kind of got to get a muted version of all that, but getting guys like Josh, getting guys like Ryan Novo, getting guys like James Nichols, guys like Dan Rice, who are going to get in that room, really get a good sense of what this team is doing and how it's feeling. Like, I don't know about you, Sam, but like seeing how loose everybody was on Monday morning and Monday afternoon before and after practice got my confidence up. It made me feel a little bit better that they were the loose team. Because that was the worry, is that it's the first Game 7 for Jack Hughes. It's the first Game 7 for Nico Hischier. It's the first Game 7, especially for Akira Schmid. Sorry. Old habits die hard. Akira Schmid. It's the first Game 7 for Bratt. I off the top of my head, I don't know Timo Meyer's playoff histories, but if it's not his first Game 7, he hasn't been in Game 7 in a long time. So you were worried they were going to go in tight. You were worried that they were going to go in with issues. ESPN put up that graphic where they showed how many times the Rangers players have been in Game 7, and it was more than double the amount of players that have been in Game 7 on the Devils, and I think it's more than triple the amount of games. And, I know Chris Kreider has that weird record where he scored them, he's almost at the most goals. I think he's second to Messier in most goals in a elimination game of all time, which is a wild stat. But you held him off the scoreboard. You held the entire Rangers team off the scoreboard. Patrick Kane, former first overall pick, Lafreniere, second overall pick, Kakko. You kept Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin. Did Panarin score all the series?
No, I don't think he did.
7 games, Artemi Panarin 0 goals, $11 million. That contract is going to age like milk, Sam.
They'll get out of
Milk.
it. They'll get out of it.
Milk.
The Rangers will get out of it like they normally do.
Yeah, the NHL will make up a rule. Let me ask you this. Now that we're kind of in the doldrums of it, I'm not a big complaint about the officiating guy. I'm going to be a complaint about the officiating guy. The officiating was atrocious in this series. Atrocious. There is a video of the referee reacting to the high stick on Jesper Bratt. Like one of those. When Jesper Bratt has a stick in his ear for multiple seconds. It wasn't even like a touch and go. It was like a... I understand that would make it a 5-on-3, but you gave the Rangers back-to-back penalties, which is arguably just as bad because that's, more time that the penalty killers have to kill. And you know that this Rangers power play is lethal. And the missed cross-check on Timo Meier, the missed cross-check on Jack Hughes, and I'm just going through the series here. Was it a high stick on Tatar that they missed in game 2 or one of the games? Just missed penalty after missed penalty. The missed hook on Jack Hughes yesterday, where he was on a breakaway and he hooked them, and that was the reason why he couldn't get a good shot off. What were your thoughts?
I've always said this. I still don't understand why Gary Bettman doesn't understand why fans have conspiracy theories about the NHL. Every fan thinks that the NHL hates their team for XYZ reasons, and then they have some kind of conspiracy theory behind it. This is what I've got to say about, all this. I felt quite a bit that ESPN and TNT, TBS paid a lot of money for rights to these games, to be a rights holder. And it just seemed like the announcers from ESPN, I don't have a problem with TNT and TBS, their analysis, I think they're pretty good. But the ESPN announcer or announcers, it's almost like they were cheering for New York. New York is New York. It's got the highest population, the ratings, the money. It all flows through New York. And it just seemed like they were cheerleading the New York Rangers along the way. The officiating, I thought, was, I don't know, Nick. In the age, I'm not going to question integrity because there's no valid reason to question it, but just in the age of sports betting world, the optics don't look good. In the NBA, that you had Tim Donaghy that got caught, right? And when you see this,
still surprised that didn't have a bigger fallout.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been the only one, but that's neither here nor there.
So, it makes you wonder, it's not that I'm accusing the referees of making some dough on the side by throwing the game. I don't think they would even go touch that. But But the optics are there. Like you wonder because now it's legalized. The other thing too is a penalty is a penalty. It doesn't matter if it's in the playoffs, but that Timo Meier hit from Trouba, I mean, are you really
the fact
letting
they didn't call that
go?
a charge? The fact they didn't call that a charge is insane. That's a charge. Like, that's a charge every day. If you don't want to call roughing, if you don't want to call the major, I'm fine with that. That's a charge. He went from 10 feet away, full stride, into him. That's a charge.
Yeah, but the thing is, Nick, isn't the league committed to try to mitigate and minimize head injuries?
No, absolutely not. They are not. Zero. No.
And that's the point I'm trying to make. You know,
They are not.
They're not. I mean, that's first off, Gary Bettman's in that denial about brain injuries, and he's a lawyer. Of course, he's going to say that. But the reality is, players have gotten bigger, stronger, faster, well conditioned, but the brain has not protected itself any better through human evolution in the last 10,000, 20,000 years, right? So they've got to do something about that. It didn't look healthy. It looked, to me, I thought it was a cheap shot. Trouba knew what he was doing. Why they didn't call anything, it's beyond me. I don't know what game they were watching, the refs. But you know what? The Devils have probably realized, and their leadership group has basically said, hey, you can only control what you can control. Keep motoring. Keep at it. Because you didn't see any of the Devils, take the bait with Trouba. No, they saw the bigger picture. We got to win this game. And if we're going to get retribution, it's going to be in preseason where nobody really cares at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I will say this. I had one of my biggest tweets of all time when I said that the NHL suspended Jacob Trouba for the rest of the playoffs when they got knocked out. That was fun. But when I see that, and I see Devils fans saying, well, I watched Scott Stevens, so I can't say that that's an illegal hit. I mean, I watched Scott Stevens too, and I loved the Paul Kariya hit. I loved the Eric Lindros hit. But I don't reference it anymore because I didn't know anything back then. It's like
those are two different hits.
But I wouldn't. I think Scott Stevens would have figured it out if they changed the rules.
Oh yeah,
because he figured out how to become the best offensive defenseman in the league, and then when a better one joined his team, he said, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to be the hardest hitter in the league because that's where we're going. I'm going to be the most defensively sound defenseman in the league because he was just that good. If they made rules that made him look like Jacob Trouba, he wouldn't be a traffic cone like Trouba is when he can't hit. He would have gone back to the offensive dynamo. He would have turned into something else that was useful for his team. Scott Stevens, does not get the credit he deserves. I'm still appalled at that athletic piece that was written about him when they were talking about the greatest players of all time. That was just trash. Saying for what it is. I love a lot of athletic journalists. We have a lot of them on because they are great. They are great. Shayna Goldman is one of the best in the business. And Corey Masisak, I miss him on the Devils beat so much. There's a lot of really, Pierre LeBrun, you can't say no. But that Scott Stevens piece was trash. Like, how is that? They talked about him like, I'm trying not to go too far with that. But I'm off on a tangent now, Sam. That made me too mad. Anyway, the fact that they didn't call it a penalty at all is insane. Insane. That's insane. I don't care that his head was down because his head was back up. He was trying to get in between three guys and then lost the puck. After he lost the puck, Jacob Trouba came in like a bowling ball. And then you have, I'm appalled at the officiating. It's been every game. It's funny though. You know what, Sam? I saw a lot of Rangers fans complaining about a lot of things. You brought up the ESPN coverage. I love the intermission show. I thought it was fun between Messier and Subban. to kind of have that dynamic. I don't know what it would have been like for like the Leafs Lightning series when you don't have two fans there, but it was fun. I thought Levy was much better as a play-by-play guy than, analyst. He was much better in Game 7.
I don't mind the intermission reports. I'm talking about the play-by-play and the color.
Yeah, it was just not. It almost seemed like they were sad when the Devils were just dominating that game, or they were sad when they took that game in overtime and with Dougie Hamilton. I didn't feel like it was unbiased. I felt like there was something. Just not like I feel like Steve Cangelosi or Bill Spaulding is more unbiased, and they're the team play-by-play guys. I felt something felt off. Again, I thought Levy did a fantastic job when he was in the booth, and he's a Rangers fan. Which maybe that was like in his head. I don't want to come off like a Rangers fan, but I just expect more. Like these ESPN broadcasts, I think the quality is good. I would love more Arda. I think Arda, he's just doing the updates, and Arda is killing it. But I think Arda, we've seen Arda on the bump. No, not the bump. What the hell is it called? The point. And he does a great job. Greg Wyshynski, friend of the podcast, does a great job. I got to say, though, how about Emily Kaplan? Gutting it through that first report. Thought she was sick. Apparently, they just had her running all over God's creation because they kept sending her to the wrong spot. I don't know. You probably didn't hear it in American Whiskey. Basically, Emily Kaplan lost her voice in the first report that she did, and they made her talk for like a full 4 minutes. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but 4 minutes of broadcast TV is basically like a 4-minute shift for for Jack Hughes.
I can relate Emily Kaplan going through that. After I do a football call, I lose my voice for about the next 3 days.
Gosh. But Kaplan is one of the best in the business. She's perfected that sideline thing where you get 2 questions. Get the most that you can get out of guys who don't want to talk for 2 questions. And she does it just as good as anybody. And those sideline reports are really good. She reshared her Devils piece that she did earlier this year. I highly recommend you watch it. It got me pumped up. It was just such a phenomenal piece. Spent just enough time on the past and just really got good answers out of Jack Hughes, which is hard. We all know how hard it is to get good answers out of Jack Hughes. And Tom Fitzgerald's a pro at this. He always gives good answers, but Nico Hischier, great interview. So it was just a phenomenal again, there are bits and pieces of the ESPN product that are phenomenal, and then bits and pieces that just seem biased, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Max in the YouTube Live with the Super Chat. At least we don't see Justin Kia again for the playoffs.
Is that a ref? I'm not good at this, Sam.
He's the ref that really screwed up that November 23rd game.
Oh, the Toronto game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Who do you, what are you rooting for, Sam? Are you rooting for just cool matchups, or are you rooting for, the path of least resistance?
I'm rooting for as many games as this team can play in these playoffs. I'm not even thinking Stanley Cup, really. I think I want to see this team grow together, experience different situational, things like, remember Game 6 when they pulled the goaltender with, 5 minutes left?
Yeah.
And they drew a penalty, and then they scored on that power play. I thought that was an important goal, even though they were down 5-2. Was it 5-2 at that point?
After they scored, it was 5-2.
Yeah, 5-2, because I think that set up Game 7, that we're not going to give up. Yeah, we can score. The game was already lost, but we're not going to give up. And we'll remember Game 6 going into Game 7. I thought that was very important.
Yeah.
That to the end, you saw what happened with the Boston Bruins a couple times with the Florida Panthers. That Game 5, they give up that chance, that opportunity. Florida capitalizes. Florida wins Game 6. Game 7, you know, Florida tied it up with a little bit over a minute left in the game and dominated overtime.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing, Sam, is that you want to talk about, like, you talked about that goal not mattering, the Dawson Mercer goal. One could argue that the Jesper Bratt empty net goal didn't matter. Tell that to the guy who ran to the bench with his arms like this. Tell me it didn't matter when Jesper Bratt, who had no goals in the series, went like this after scoring on an empty net to seal the series. I mean, you can't tell me it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When that's the reaction from the player. And you can't tell me that when when the series starts 2 days later, that Bratt's not going to still be thinking about that. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that. And I made this point, Sam. And it's why I got the Devils winning the next series. And there's going to be a preview piece out tomorrow on pucksandpitchforks.com from all the writers. It's in your inbox, Sam, too, if you want to.
Yeah, I haven't had time because, we've been doing a
Send
podcast.
me 2 sentences.
Just win, baby.
Sure, if that's it, then give me a pick. But I got the Devils winning the series because I made this point, I think it's after we went down 0-2. Was it 0-1 or 0-2? I don't. Whenever we did the State of the Fan address early in the series, I said it was 0-1. Okay. The Devils all year have been great on little rest and bad on a lot of rest, and they're playing every other day, baby. Every other day for basically the rest of the series. Maybe like an extra day of rest here and there. But they're playing no more than on 2 days rest. The Devils are great on little rest. And they don't have to worry about resting as long as they, are in this series with Carolina. And here's the thing, Sam. And I'll leave you with this because it's 9:30. It's time for us to go. But is everything gravy at this point? Full success, even if you get swept by Carolina. Full successful year, like no qualms. Good taste in your mouth the entire time.
That was very significant, beating the Rangers on so many levels because that's your biggest rival, and the Rangers were a very good team, and the Devils really had no, from the beginning of the season, like, they had no business beating the Rangers if you want to buy into the whole experience, argument. But you know what? Again, I'll go back to what I'm going to say. The longer the Devils stay in the playoffs, the better it is overall for the organization. I think the Devils, with the Bruins and Colorado out, it's anybody's cup right now.
Oh yeah, I mean that's absolutely true.
Because Carolina is, they've had their injuries, but they're a great team. They've got a great coach. They have the experience. But again, I think the Devils' naiveness and being guided by Lindy Ruff, I think has been a match made in heaven because this team doesn't know any better. Other than, hey, we could do this, guys. They're not going to buy into, what the media is telling the fans. They know who they are, and there's a lot of great character players on this team throughout. And I think, they have what it takes to win the cup. But are they consistent enough on defense? Are they consistent enough on the offense? And, again, they're getting a lot of their goals from other players, but not from the but not from the main ones, except for Jack Hughes.
You're not wrong. That's all I got, Sam, though. Time for plugs, or you got something else?
Yeah, why don't you plug?
Pucksandpitchworks.com. You know what we didn't talk about today, Sam?
What's that?
Nico Hischier got named a finalist for the Selke Trophy.
Saw that.
That's written on pucksandpitchworks.com by yours truly. I'll look for your boy. There's a really cool T-shirt called Kings of the Hudson that you can buy on pucksandpitchworks.com. I don't get any of the money. I don't really know where it goes, but it's a cool shirt. Go buy the shirt.
Yeah.
Tyler Russell, one of our newer writers, wrote a round 2 preview. Jersey Joe wrote up his thoughts about Carolina. Dan Rice, the one and only Dan Rice, wrote his thoughts on the Devils dispatching the Rangers. He calls them the Strangers. The Strangers, Sam. And then this morning I wrote 5 reasons why the New Jersey Devils can win the Stanley Cup.
Wow.
I didn't put them in any particular order, Sam. I did have the Bruins and the Avalanche losing on there. But do you know what I have as in my internal number 1?
What's
The
that?
Devils' only injury right now is Jonathan Bernier.
Does not surprise me.
So the teams that win the Stanley Cup are the ones that go into the Stanley Cup playoffs the most healthy. And the Devils, I think, are the most healthy.
I agree.
But tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a round 2 preview from as many Pucks and Pitchforks writers, all 13 of them. That's going to be out on pucksandpitchforks.com first thing in the morning. And then I'm going to write a piece, Sam. I'm going to write about I'm going to break down the series position by position, just like I did the Rangers series a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to work fast, so I got to go.
All right. Just want to plug that we'll be back at American Whiskey for Game 3. It's a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start. Game Day Live and Devils After Dark will be there this upcoming Sunday. Also, the game, I believe that's on Tuesday the following week for Game 4 as well. I'm not going to be at any viewing parties for now when the Devils are on the road, but definitely when the Devils are at home to play the Carolina Hurricanes. Also, Jack Hughes is with the Lady Bing as well, a finalist. So great on Jack Hughes. That's to be expected because he's pretty tame out there when it comes to the shenanigans.
I agree.
So I'm going to hit the music. Nick, want to thank all those tuning in, dropping the podcast at midnight. You better go to pucksandpitchforks.com.
You better.
Especially
You better. Do it.
We're going to be writing 2 sentences that will be published very soon.
Sam, we gotta get to pucksandpitchforks.com when you have published work. We got it.
Yeah. So, anyway, Nick, thank you very much. Thank you to Josh Reinitz. And thank you to fans for tuning in. The Morning Woo tomorrow. Sometime in the morning. Until next time, let's go.